Welcome to Dirty Data here on the fourth period. That's Aaron Ward and Shane Kelly. I'm David Pagnotta. And guys, a lot of movement in the National Hockey League, off the ice anyway, in the last few days. The Philadelphia Flyers making a coaching change, getting rid of Alain Vigneault and Michel Therrien behind the bench and elevating Mike Yeo to interim head coach. They're going to start their process looking for a full-time coach soon, but for the time being, they're trying to right the ship. First game didn't look so good against Colorado, a 7-5 loss, guys. What has led the Flyers to this point?
Yeah, this is an absolute head scratcher. If you look back to the summer and the excitement about bringing Atkinson in, a leadership type guy, he's going to be a solidifier for the front end, wants to be there. Everybody's saying the right things. And now we get to the stage of the season. There's a goal differential of minus 21. They're fifth worst in the power play in the National Hockey League, bottom third in penalty kill in the National Hockey League, and lead the league in shots against. I mean, this from a team that we thought, okay, the only thing we need to resolve was Carter Hart. Turns out it's across the board. You can look to this team and say, okay, there's some clear issues. All right, so the greatest performer amongst the boards right now is Giroux. Falls off from there. I mean, you look around, there's some absences of players, key players that you can say, okay, we can come up with reasons. Decor is abysmal. Overall abysmal. And maybe another thing you can point to is Ryan Ellis is not back there. I think he's only managed a couple of games in the season. And with that, he put up production. But the lacking component to this group is a unifier. He eats those minutes. He plays by example. He's one of those guys in a team that as he gets out there, because he plays that gritty, hard style, he brings the rest of the team along. And Carter Hart, I mean, he's looking in front of him saying, you got guys with, minus 15 on the season. And you go back again to saying giving up the most shots against. It doesn't put him in an ideal position. So a lot of things going wrong for the Philadelphia Flyers that you did not expect to be coming into this season.
This is a group where, nobody's really hurting them too bad, but also nobody's really helping outside of Giroux and Couturier. On the front end, again, we look, it's an old group now. Like the average age of this team is close to 30, so they kind of have to go for it at this point. But outside of Frost, who they just brought up, you've got a bunch of guys who are losing the possession battle, who aren't scoring a ton, so you're not getting much there. On the back end, you're giving Keith Yandel almost 16 minutes a night. All due respect to Keith, I know he's an incredible NHLer, but he shouldn't be playing on a team that fancies itself a contender at all, let alone 16 minutes a night. And you can see it. They're third worst in the NHL in high danger scoring chances against. They're 18th in puck possession. And their goaltenders, you hope Carter Hart's at a point in his career now where he can steal a game for you. But really, he's been just league average, and Martin Jones as well. So this is just kind of a blah team, and that's turned into a bad record, basically.
It's a struggle also for Philly to keep guys in lineup, right? Broussard is out injured. I think he should be back relatively soon. Farabee, same situation. I mean, these guys are actually having decent production for this team, and they're out of the lineup. Include the fact that Hayes has been missing for a significant amount of time for Philly. It's not a good recipe for a team who's trying to find themselves. And that is the difficulty for Philly. They don't have time to find themselves. They've been trying to find themselves for 5-6 years. Now's not the time. So I think that is the explanation right there. You've got to cut bait and move on. And so when you have to answer why is Vigneault gone, some of these things are out of his control, but he really hasn't been able to gain control of this locker room or this organization.
So, based on what you said, Wardo, are we at a point now with the Philadelphia Flyers where it's time to go through a retool, a rebuild, whatever you want to call it? You've got Carter Hart, who's early 20s, so you can build off of that in net. You have Provorov. You have those young guys in Frost and Farabee and others. But Giroux's a UFA at the end of the season. You've got some older guys you guys talked about. This is one of the oldest teams in the league. Is it time now for them to face reality and start that rebuild process?
I absolutely do. I think for one reason, peer pressure. You look around Montreal, Vancouver. Why not? Let's be the cool kids. But the other thing is when you start to hear people and the rumors out there that Giroux might be considering an option to play in Ottawa, true or not, when those things start to leak out, I think the writing's on the wall that everybody around the National Hockey League comprehends the state of affairs here in Philly. And it's a hard place to get to an organization. You just saw Green and Benning vacate. You see Bergevin gone. You don't know the future of Ducharme, and now Montreal's taken someone who's an Anglophone and put him in charge of Montreal. A lot of massive changes happening around the National Hockey League. Philly's got to get to that place of accepting this is where they're at too. And you can't recycle players. You've got to go with what you think is your future and really ride them. And that's where I think Philly's at right now. So, yeah, it's a difficult situation to be in at this stage of the season in December to say, hey, season's pretty much over, but start thinking to the future.
We talk a lot as well about off-ice and cap usage and cap efficiency. They've got a ton of money and term tied up in some players who are way post-peak years. And that's, not necessarily a bad thing if you're good, but if those players are supposed to be what's carrying your team on a playoff run, and the JVRs, the Kevin Hayes who can't get in the lineup, he's a little bit older now. He plays a power game. It's just the start of more injuries. Ryan Ellis is over 30. Giroux is 34. Yandel's 35. Like, this is an old group. So you want to try to rebuild, but how do you move some of these deals? Like, who is going to pick up the term left on JVR's contract? He's 32 now, and he has 4 points, and his possession numbers are down. His expected goals numbers are down. There's just nothing in there that says at 32 he's going to bounce back. So who takes that gamble?
Well, the only good news then is this December, and so you have time, and you have time to assess. I mean, if you look at a New York Rangers team currently with Blais out, that they need to replace that player, maybe there's something on Philly, even if it's eating salary or something. I think that Philly, if they get themselves to a frame of mind of thinking that they have to take this path, then at least they have time to plan rather than being, baptism by fire come trade deadline, that we're here, we're just going to unload, and we're going to take some really bad hits to what we have to do bottom line.
Yeah, the one issue they might have unloading some of these deals close to the deadline too is, as you talked about, Wardo, there's a ton of teams going through this rebuilding process now. So you almost wonder, is it worth doing it if the asset prices are going to be so depressed? Because the list of teams that seem to be undertaking a rebuild or a retool, whatever the word of the moment is getting longer by the day.
Well, even with that, the Flyers don't have that much currency to move closer to the trade deadline if they do go that route. They've got some defensemen in Ristolainen and Braun and a couple other guys, but Giroux is the big guy. He's a UFA, and if they do end up moving him, well, that's a different discussion that we're certainly going to have about this club and their plans moving forward. But until then, we will keep tabs on the Philadelphia Flyers and see how they do. They've got a game against New Jersey coming up before they hit the road, so we'll see how this team can try to get back on track. That's Aaron Ward and Shane Kelly. I'm Dave Pagnotta. Thanks for watching another edition of Dirty Data.